everyone. I am Shivangi and I proudly present you the fourth episode of Phoenix Talk podcast. So today we have Priya Satya ma'am with us, and in the fourth episode we will be talking about the overseas education in detail and busting some myths. Whatever your doubts are, we'll be covering all of them. So Mrs. Priya Satya is the director of KC Overseas, and she has herself been to Australia for her higher education. And the host of the podcast today are me and Harini. So let's dive in.
Hi everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of Phoenix Talk podcast. So today we have Mrs. Priya Satya with us. She is Mrs. India Universe 2021 and she's jack of all trades. She's the director of KC Overseas. KC Overseas is an overseas education institution. They help us across the globe for higher studies and undergrad also. Now we have her on the episode to grace us with her knowledge. Yes, ma'am. Welcome to our episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Harini, and that was indeed a very lovely introduction. So thanks for the same.
Starting with the first question, ma'am. You yourself have studied abroad, right? So we would want to know your experience as a student first. What determination you had? Why did you pursue?
Okay. So to be honest, it wasn't a plan that was made. I did not want to study abroad to start with. So once I finished, by then I had done my double bachelor's and one master's in India. So I had done, to start with, I started off with architectural engineering, UVC. I changed 3 colleges in 3 months and quit, saying that's not my cup of tea. Later decided that engineering is not something I wanted to pursue, although my entire family is a family of engineers. So I decided that's not my path. So I had done a BBA from the Canadian School of Management, whose head office was in Toronto, followed by an MBA in Human Resource Management. But I also took up a major in statistics and economics. So completed my BSc in Mathematics, Economics and Statistics from the Bangalore University. Once this happened, the main motive, I was married really, really young. So I was married by the time I was in my second year undergraduation. So I had not even completed my graduation. And the goal was to immigrate abroad, which is technically my husband's goal. So we were exploring various immigration opportunities, and New Zealand was one of the countries we had in mind to basically settle down. But life so happens, nothing goes as per plan, but I always believe that something that doesn't go well is always the best for you because you have something better stored. So I think that's when we decided that I should study a master's in Australia instead of going to New Zealand. And that by far has been the best experience ever. So to come back to your question and the point of how did you prepare, what was the determination, I didn't have any to start with because it was not something I had planned. But once I got into it, it was an amazing experience because I went with what was the subject I was really interested in. So MSc in Applied Statistics is what I wanted to pursue, and that was available back then in very few universities. Right now you call it data science, you have a lot of analytics happening where statistics is probably one of the most opted ones. I'm talking 2003 when people hardly knew what is applied statistics. So then I applied to the university. Things happened so quickly, everything went down very well until the visa came in just 2 hours before our flight was to depart. So there was that tension there, but I never had any issues with preparations or offers. Everything was done by fluke. So if I have to put it in one word, we were told you have to prepare these documents, whether it was a statement of purposes or letters of recommendations or you name it. I'll probably come to the documentation later. But we weren't guided as such. I just did everything by hook and crook, and these things I'm talking during the times when there was no Google and Hotmail was the only email ID that was available. So there was no search engines to kind of prepare for anything. But I think that's how I am now in a position where I can guide students a lot better because being there, having done that, I've actually experienced the same stuff. So now if I have to talk about what happened with the education when I was in Australia, It was a 1.5 years program. I think the best 1.5 years of my life. I would definitely want to say that. The first 6 months went wondering what's happening, because basically I had to unlearn everything that was already done in India. Nothing was similar. In India, it's basically, you by hearting your formulas, everything is memory based. A lot of things you may understand, you may not understand, but as long as you're able to kind of put it in your examination or papers, it's done. Back there, they would give you the computer, they would give you open book exams and say apply. So it's like, great, what do I apply and where? Because we are not used to that. We are used to by hearting what sine theta is, but they will say use sine theta, and that's something none of us are really used to. But after the 6 months, I really understood the concepts. So whatever I had learned in India, I had to unlearn, and I really understood what's the significance of what I was doing. So that's how the whole journey began. So 1.5 years later, I had my graduation with MSc Applied Statistics.
It's an amazing journey and experience you have had, ma'am. Moving on to the next question. So, how does KC work, and what are the services that you provide? How do you guide students? Because I myself know there have been hundreds of, even from my college, there have been a lot of people. So, we would like to know the services that you provide and how you guide students throughout the process.
Sure. Having lived 7 years in Australia, 2 years in Canada, we got back to India in 2011. Initially, our first year was with UCC College Cork, Ireland. We were the Indian head office for them in India. Later, we tied up with KC. Back then, they used to be called Krishna Consultants. Their head office is in Nagpur. And they deal with 29 countries, and right now, they've completed 25 years of existence. They have 6,500 agents that they work with, 65 offices across India. What they do is end-to-end services. So we start off with initially having a profile assessment. So every student who walks in, what's your profile like, and a perfect match. And depending on the destination, I specifically usually prefer giving students multiple destinations. Because students, like I said, with my own journey, my destination was New Zealand, but it didn't end up that way. It's always better to have 2 or 3 different countries, because every year embassy rules change. So depending on that and depending on your future goals, there might be things that you don't want from the previous destination you had in mind. What we do is end-to-end services. So once the profile set assessment happens, we send a shortlisted course options to the student, which pretty much has a full discovery of what's the university, which program, what's the duration, and approximate annual tuition fees. Are there any scholarships, any special comments, what kind of IELTS and eligibility requirements are needed. If it does have a GRE and GMAT requirement, again, I'll come to different tests a little later, but just to sum up, what are those and what needs to be done. So a spreadsheet is sent to the student, and we usually send a country-wise spreadsheet. We ask the student to go through, do homework, check the websites, check the curriculum, the syllabus, and then get back to us with what is it that they are interested in. The reason why I'm kind of emphasizing, although it's not a big major thing, is a lot of consultants don't do that. They decide what suits the student best, they give a list, and then that's done. Now the student, who especially is very new to this particular industry, has no clue what needs to be done. But with us, I'm very, very particular that you should like the curriculum, because you're spending so much money, going so far. Imagine I suggested a program, but I may not even know what is your specialty or your specialization. A lot of consultants say, go to this university, they are number 1 in AI. And then it's done. Yes, they might be number 1 in AI, but there might be curriculum that you actually are not interested in at all, because there are so many universities which are good in AI. So we always go by what's the student's preference. So once that student comes back to us after their homework, we send them a document checklist. Most of them are similar. Certain countries need certain different things depending on it. And then we start the application procedure. All our services are free, end to end. We help the students with making an application. If there is an application fee waiver given by the university, we pass it on to the student. There are certain universities which do not give it, where the student directly pays the application fees to the university. We help them once the offers come in to decide which offer, and depending on the destination, we guide them with the financial requirements, with any conditions that the letter might have that you need to fulfill. We help them with visa processing. We also have a department in KC Nagpur which has an accommodations department which the student could avail if they want accommodations. Once again, it's a free of cost service and it's not mandatory to go with us, but that service is available. Similarly, there are most students and parents who go to their own banks for education loans, which we are absolutely fine with. But let's say for whatever reason they want KC helping it, we have another department called Elan, which is also based out of Nagpur, which has more than 25 top banks including SBI, BOB, all these under their umbrella. There are certain countries which want disbursement before visa. There are certain banks that give special interest rates for special universities, which once again the parents and students are not aware of. So when you go through Elan, they guide you as per that. So last time I think we had a student who went to Macquarie in Australia, and the interest rate was 9% in all other banks. He got it at 8.25 because he went with Bank of Baroda, and Bank of Baroda was specifically offering a special interest for Macquarie. So such things also are there in our help. Apart from that, there are services such as travel assistance and all that if needed. Having said that, it's all optional. It all depends if the student is really looking for it.
So from a general point of view of a student, let's say, there are few students, let's say, who are studying mechanical engineering. They know that, okay, I might want to go to Germany, but there are many other students, maybe from computer science, fashion, or commerce, etc., etc. They do not really know which country is suited for their kind of educational domain, and they have this fear of cost of living, or even the returns from the education, if they'll be getting that or not. So according to you, how would you rate countries, maybe top 5 or top 10, which someone in general can choose from?
Yeah. So the top 5 has been, is, and probably will be US, Australia, followed by Ireland these days for computer science especially, France, certain European countries depending on, like you rightly mentioned, mechanical. Also depends on what is their future goal. So there are two aspects here when you talk about return on investments, and it's a very, very important thing, to be honest. We even tell the students, if you're going abroad, you're spending whatever that particular time, each country has part-time jobs available. That takes care basically of your living costs, which is why living cost is something you're not spending on. The second aspect of it is your tuition fees. Every country has something called PSW, which is the post-study work visas. Every country does this so that every international student getting into that country stays back, recovers the entire tuition fees. So it's kind of a project where you are investing only your time, and especially young students such as you guys, just out of college, you have ample of time to think about your future, right? So what you do is basically spend that many years in a particular country. Return on investment is definitely there because of the quality of education, the knowledge, and once you come back from any country, that weightage is always there. I can talk from my own experience. Even till date, although I graduated in 2005, even till date, my bread and butter has been my master's program in Australia. Similarly, you will also reap that forever. But the spending, the return on investment, the way we plan and the way we suggest the students is part-time jobs taking care of your living costs. So your living cost goes to zero, and the post-study work visas taking care of your tuition fees. So that is also written. And now coming back to your other question of how do we plan which destination, there are two aspects. One, like you rightly pointed out, programs and which countries are well suited for those programs. Second part is your long-term goals in life. So main long-term goals are study, come back. There are certain students who are like these big business tycoons kids or celebrity kids. They are just going to have a ball of their life, have some international experience, exposure, finish their studies, come back. For those, yes, you suggest even I could send them to Timbuktu and they will still come back, right? So that is not the main option. There are certain people who say they want to stay back and settle down for long. If that's the main goal behind it, there are certain countries which are directly open for immigration. The top 3 countries would be Australia, New Zealand and Canada, which have something called skilled migration available. You want them to start? It's fine. Yeah. So they have something called the skilled migration. What they mean is they have scarcity of population, which means majority of the occupations or all the degrees that you just spoke about are in scarcity. What do we mean by scarcity? Not just the load population that we are talking about, it's also the aging population. For instance, if I have to compare the population of Australia with India, in fact that was my final year project for demographics of statistics. India's more than 55% of population is under the age of 20. So we have a very young population, which is why our population is very high. So even if we were to control the number of kids per family to 1 or 2, we have very young generation. So it's only going to double, triple by the time it goes. Australia's population over the age of 50 is 45%, which means it's a very old aged population, and which is why they need very young crowd coming into their country and fulfilling it. So none of the countries are doing any charity. If they have their immigrations open, it means they need people coming out and helping them. So now if we have to go by main programs, so let's say we take options of computer science. It's very well known across the globe. US stands number 1 as far as computer science is concerned. There is Silicon Valley. The number of computer science options and IT industries in US can never be beaten. And if US falls for computer science or recession, we are in trouble, because then entire world will suffer. So US will stand for computer science. But courses like civil, construction, commerce, business, all these are amazing with countries such as Australia, New Zealand and Canada. Reasoning being, they are very high on construction projects, including the government. They support a lot of highways and projects like that, and everyone, there is a scarcity. Apart from that, they are too big in banking. So any finance, banking sector is very well developed in these countries. Once again, they are into scarcity with those. Apart from that, teaching, nursing, medical, physiotherapy, nowadays mental awareness, so anything to do with psychology, all these have picked up too much of importance in the last 2 years. These weren't as prevalent before, but nowadays they're all gaining popularity. Mechanical is once again, like you rightly pointed out, Germany. They cannot be beaten because of their automobile sector. But having said that, not many will get into Germany because number 1, their fees is free, which means the competition is very high. They are now looking at somewhere around more than 9 CGPA to even take the application in their hands. Post that, there are so many students with 9 CGPA, they will refilter. This is very similar to if you went to US and you went to an Ivy League. So if you were to apply for Harvard, Stanford, Georgia Tech, Carnegie Mellon, name all these big ones, 404 GPA, they would have 1 lakh applications. They don't give a damn about your academics, although 404 is required. They want to know in those 1 lakh applications, how are you different? So once again, the criteria is very strict, similarly to Germany. What we've seen over the years, UK surprisingly is doing very well with automobile, especially the students we have sent to UK are doing very well with Rolls-Royce and such companies. Nowadays you have MG, which is UK based, of course Chinese company, but you know, a lot of UK based. So in and around the Schengen areas, the one English speaking country which is really doing good with mechanical is UK, comparatively. Otherwise, Europe is best suited. Similarly, any design courses are very well suited in countries like Italy, France, fashion designing, any kind of designing, product designing. These are the best suited countries. But we stick majorly to the English speaking countries for various reasons, which once again I think I'll cover in the next question perhaps.
Okay, ma'am. So, me myself as a layman in all these terms, the thing is, when I was in my 12th grade, I used to go to YouTube and browse about higher studies in abroad and overseas. So from YouTube videos, what I found out is there were many European countries like Italy, Spain and Germany, and they were providing free education, or they were taking very less charges as the tuition fee. So like, have you got any such kind of request or application that I want to go to France or I want to go to Spain, and if you have got such applications, what kind of courses have people mostly opted there?
Very well said. Germany is one of the most popular countries for free education, as you mentioned, because there are public universities which are completely funded by the government, which is why they give the tuition fees free.
On to the next question, ma'am. As students, we are very ambitious which country we want to go, the course that we want to pursue. The most crucial and the important part for both students and parents is the financial planning. If you could brief us about that, give us an overview, if it's because that's one of the most important thing to pursue and to make decisions or anything, which is always, anyone else does not educate us about.
To brief out, when I talk overall, every country is almost asking you for the first year's living costs and first year's tuition fees, irrespective of the duration of the program. There are certain countries which are asking for the second year as well, but more of a progression plan. So what they mean by the first year tuition fees and first year expenses is in your offer letter, they've given you the tuition fees and they have some scholarship. So taking that out, that tuition fees you should have it available. Apart from that, a 1 year living cost. Like I said, each country's living cost is different. Now, how can you fund it? There are various ways, including education loan. Majority of the countries are absolutely fine with you completely funding your education with an education loan. Foreign international education loans are basically only interest payable on the disbursed amount. So if I have to just give you an example, let's say you take an education loan of 25 lakhs and you disburse 7 lakhs in India before you go, and you've not disbursed the remaining. So let's say 18 lakhs is remaining. They will put the interest part only on that 7 lakhs that you disbursed until you finish your masters or you find your job. And this is in the foreign country. So it's a great advantage to have an education loan from Indian banks because one, you would be repaying it. So, for parents who are not very big on funding or why should we spend so much money on your education? Very honestly, all they need to do is give a collateral or be a guarantor for your education loan, which is exactly what I did when I went to study. I didn't take any money from my parents. I took an education loan. Back then I had disbursed 4 lakhs when I went from India, and those 4 lakhs I paid off within the first 6 months I reached there. It was easier for me because I went with my husband who could work full time as well. That advantage obviously not every student has. But we were easily able to pay off the education loan, and once you get the job is when you pay the principal and interest. So if your parents, if at all they are paying in India, they're only paying on the interest part of, for example, the same example I gave. If you've disbursed 7 lakhs, they're paying 10% interest for 1 year, which is 70,000 per year here in India. That's about it. Remaining everything you are clearing when you are going to foreign countries, hopefully, unless the student doesn't want to clear and they have. Apart from that, savings and FDs of the parents usually help because it shows your financial stability in this country. All countries have something called home country ties. What they mean is it's okay for you to settle down later once you finish your masters, especially if they have immigration options. But while going as a student, you cannot say I'm coming there to settle down. There is something called a genuine student test. Every single country has it. Certain countries have visas which determine that, so the visa interviews of an embassy. Certain countries have visa applications where you need to mention that. There is something called a statement of purpose where you're trying to say what I'm doing right now is studying. That is my main reason, because every visa has a genuinity requirement. Even if you go to travel, you have to tell them you're a genuine visitor and you're not going to just stay back in that country, because there are a lot of illegal immigrants and illegal things happening in various states of India where they go on a different visa and they stay back, and then they are there forever because now they have to bury their passport. They can never come back because they've stayed back illegally. This happens in various states. Luckily for us, Bangalore doesn't belong to that category, which is what all embassies depend on. But such things, to avoid such things, when you go as a student, you have to tell them how genuine you are as a student. So when you talk about it, you also have to show your interest in that subject. What research have you done with that university? Why is that university being chosen? Which means you're genuinely thinking of studies, plus your financial stability in your home country. Which means apart from education loan, are you people good enough for you to come back, or are you somebody who has nothing in India and you're just fleeing to that country? And this is your easiest one. So that FDs and savings can be shown. They don't have to be disbursed, they don't have to be used, they have to be shown. Each country once again has different rules and regulations, but majority have to have those FDs and savings either in the student's account or in the parent's account. And usually the months required is minimum 3 months or minimum 6 months, depending on the destination you're going to.
Ma'am, as far as I know, there's something non-collateral loans as well.
Yes.
So, can we touch that topic?
Absolutely. Once again, not every country has that. So this is bank dependent, it's a bank's policy. But the majority of banks these days specifically, because with the number of so many students going abroad to study from India, I think it's only increasing. It's tripled from the last 2 years is what the figures are, and it's supposed to increase by 30 to 40% in the next 4 or 5 years. That's the prediction. So basically what they are doing is giving something called unsecured loans or non-collateral loans as they are called. What it means is majority of education loans needs a property based on which they are giving you a loan, because God forbid tomorrow when you go to a foreign country, you just cut off ties with banks, where will they come and look for you? Although they know Malya's address, they are not able to. So imagine where do they find people who are not Malyas and not well known. So for that what they do is they take a guarantor who's usually your parents or someone you know in India whom they can basically bother. Secondly, they keep properties as collateral. So this is usually a residential property which you already have. Now non-collateral, as the name suggests, has no security that way. It is usually given on the basis of your parents' income. If they feel that the parents' income is good enough and they are not one of those who would probably be, what they call is the risk analysis. So risk analyst team in the banks decide that this is a very safe family. We, kind of believe them. So we would give loans. Now they've increased that limit to 40 lakhs in countries like UK and Australia. And there are certain banks which give 1 crore, up to 1 crore education loans like for US without any security, because they believe that these students later will settle down in those countries and definitely repay them. So that's the risk the banks are taking. So those are the unsecured loans.
Ma'am, so is there any difference in rate of interests between the collateral and non-collateral?
Again, dependent on the bank, usually it's about 0.5% to 1% higher than a secured loan, but there are certain banks which are absolutely matching it as well. Majority have about 0.5 to 1% difference. So if it's a family which doesn't want to give their valuation or give away their properties as securities, they prefer just going for the 0.5% higher rate, 0.5 to 1%.
Can apply for higher studies like MS or MBA and can get scholarship, and on what requirements are scholarship based, maybe CGPA or yes, other requirements?
Absolutely. Majorly, they're called merit-based scholarships. So usually it's obviously based on your academic performance. 85 to 90% of universities are directly considering you for scholarships on the basis of your marks card. So you're not doing anything extra. There are certain 15 to 20% or 25% of the universities which will ask you for scholarship essays as to why is it that they should give this scholarship to you. Once again, we are there to guide you. We'll give you samples. We'll guide you as to what it needs to be done. It's basically selling yourself like you would for a job. Your main USPs, as long as they are happy with it, they are giving. Now, how much is the scholarship is a different question. It could be as low as 10%. It could be as high as full 100%, depending on your academics, the university, what is available and what not. But if I have to kind of tell you a realistic scholarship, 15 to 25% is what majority of students fall into. So let's say if your fees is coming to about 15 lakhs, you would have about 20-25% of scholarships on that 15 lakhs. And it's equally distributed and given to you. Now this is the foreign university scholarships. Apart from that, what a lot of people are unaware of, the Karnataka government scholarship. We have it across India. Each state has its own scholarships, but the government of Karnataka has various scholarships. The general merit miss out on it also. Usually they don't get much of scholarships. But if we have to talk about SC/ST scholarships are completely fully funded, including their airfare, laptop, tuition fees, living costs, everything is completely funded by by the government of Karnataka. We sent a student for MCom who got 45 lakhs just last year. We sent another student for a research program, he got 1 crore. He got full funding when he went to the foreign university, so that 1 crore was his pocket money because the foreign university gave him funding, and he got placed in Rolls Royce. He became a vice president within 2 years. He's kept the 1 crore in his bank. So, such things can happen. Not that it's a very common scenario. We've also had certain students who have gone first year with 15% scholarship to US, for example. A certain student of us, UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore is where he went. Second year, complete funding of tuition fees. Once again, he also went with the government of Karnataka scholarship. So I think the scholarship is very, good luck or good omen for students. And then they get to keep both. So both options are available. Apart from that, OBC scholarships are available, which gives 10 lakhs per year. So this is a fixed one. They are not worried about how costly your program is or what is your living cost. So if you fall into that, you get 10 lakhs per year. Similarly, minority scholarships. So the minority classes would be, if you're a Muslim, Christian, Jain, Punjabi, like a Sikh community, you get 10 lakhs per year as well. So these are other scholarships that the Indian government provides. We have to talk about government of Karnataka. Yeah, so the government of Karnataka provides.
Ma'am, next thing is, okay, when you fly abroad, one more important perspective is the language proficiency, right? So can you just elaborate about different countries and their language requirements?
Yeah.
And countries that require, few of them require exams also too.
Yes. Majorly the most common exams that is required is your English exam, because we Indians are not considered English speaking. Now a lot of students come to me and say, ma'am, why not? I've studied in English all my life, but as a country, we are not considered English speaking. So there are a list of countries which come under English speaking countries. Only those are exempted from English tests. So no matter which country you go to, usually you would need an English test. The most common English test would be IELTS, which is the English, International English Language Testing System, which usually majority of universities want a 6.5 overall band with no band lower than 6. When I say bands, what I mean is there are 4 sections: listening, speaking, reading and writing. These are the 4 different ones. It's not a very difficult English test. Very honestly, if you have decent communication skills and decent English, you're able to clear it. Unless you come from a really rural background, or if you come from Kannada medium or other mediums of languages, that's when they struggle and they need coaching classes. So adding to that, KC also has English language coaching which happens online if people are interested in taking it. Once again, for us in Karnataka and Bangalore, that has not been a case. Majority do it themselves. There are books given the moment you enroll. Once again, we are one of the centers which can book IELTS for you, and we give the study material free of cost. So you could just prepare from that, and majority just pass from that, and you can see some YouTube videos. Apart from the English language system, now TOEFL is the next most known English language, usually taken in Canada and US. There is something called PTE, which is the Pearson's Test of English, which is very common for Australia. These are best suited for students who are very fast with keyboard skills. So people with very high typing skills usually opt for PTE. All of them have very similar way of doing it. They're similar. Countries, European countries, especially countries like Germany, have something called A1, A2 requirements, which is their German language requirements. So you have to be A1 or A2 depending on what they ask. So it's a new language that you need to basically learn. But apart from that, all English speaking countries, this is the only thing you would need.
Moving on to the next question, because we were talking about exams. We also have few exams like GMAT, GRE. So is that mandatory to take, or are there options, or universities accept without it? And can you brief us about that?
Again, GRE, GMAT is a requirement of US followed by Canada. There are certain universities in Germany which also need GRE, although that was not their first thing. Now because of filtering, like I said, their academic requirements are so high, they've added one more filtration. The GRE also needs to be high. So if you talk about any other country apart from these 3, they don't need GRE at all. It doesn't exist. GMAT is a requirement once again about for US for all management programs and MBA programs mainly, and certain top ranked universities in UK and Australia. Like let's say you wanted to go to a business school in Oxford or Cambridge, or in Australia the group of 8, if it is MBA they might ask you for a GMAT program. But otherwise, if it's not those business schools and if it's not an MBA, other countries don't even need a GMAT. So all you need is just an English language test and that's it. That qualifies you with your current academic scores from your marks cards.
Moving on to the next question, there are different intakes also, right? September, Jan. So can you elaborate on that? Because usually we graduate around August and we go in September. Whatever delays and we go in Jan, there are a few conditions as well, right?
And I've seen a lot of students tell the other students, don't go in January, there are no job opportunities, all job opportunities open in September, which is kind of very weird, because why would a country decide on the basis of these job opportunities? Having said that, the reasoning being their universities also have September intakes. A lot of graduates get out, which is why a lot of job opportunities open around them, because the companies know that these graduates are coming out during that time. But having said that, both have pros and cons. So if you go in September, a lot of students are competing with you for the jobs. If you go in January, the number of students competing with you for jobs are lower, but the number of opportunities are also lower. So if you see percentage wise, there is no real advantage in going either in September or going in January or February. It's the same. It's just that more opportunities with more competition in September, lower opportunities and lower competition in January.
Yes, now moving on to the next question, most important, the crucial part is we even shortlist the universities, everything. The documentation, which is the crucial part of doing SOP, the letter of recommendation, there's a lot more. And many of us are not even aware what are the documentation required and how to go about it. I think KC is an expert in guiding us.
Yes. So basically what we do with the documentation, as per country requirements, as per the university requirements, we send you the list. And most times we also send you the samples for each of that. What KC doesn't do, especially our Bangalore branch, is thanks to me, we do not write SOPs for anyone. We do have a content writer who's outsourced available if needed, but I'm actually against all of it, because in a statement of purpose, I actually need to see your story. How are you different? If you Googled, if you did it for someone else, it would be majorly plagiarized, which is a big no for all universities in all countries. All universities want to know the real you as much as possible. They probably won't be able to know the whole you. But so what I always do is give you the structure, what is needed, samples. We tell you don't copy paste, put your stories into it. And then as you are aware, I go back and forth again and again and again until I am completely satisfied documentations are not sent to the university at all. So coming back to us being a free of cost consultancy, we do not do any package services for our non-tie-ups, because we usually used to do it. Like for example, if I had to send some student to Germany, German universities will not pay us commission because it's free, and anyways they have so many applications. Why do they need new applications coming in? Similarly, there are Ivy Leagues which will not do it. Initially, we used to provide services to these universities by charging the student 5,000 per university and guiding them. Later, I realized we are technically doing nothing, because we are not tied up with them. The student has to directly make the application. We are just guiding them, and it's very unfair that we charge the student for no reason. We can't get in touch with the delegates. We can't talk to the university for the student. Student has to do everything themselves, and it's just unfair. So we stopped that, which means with the other universities, we directly talk to the delegates if need be. Let's say for whatever reason, like I said, usually with our documentation screening, we do not get rejections of offers, because coming back to the fees point, since I don't charge you anything, I will make sure you go to a university, because the university has to pay me. Otherwise, I can't sustain, right? I can't do charity. I'm not an NGO. So we make sure that you do go to the best option that you are suitable for. So we know the documentation requirement. We guide you that way, and it goes through a screening process. let's say for whatever reason, the university for whatever reasons did not like the documentation, we actually put you through the delegates. We make you directly talk to the delegates, talk to the universities. We go till the end. If that was your priority university, we put our heart and soul until the university now says, please don't bother calling me again. It's done again and again. So that's the kind of service we provide.
I see that people go for MS courses outside. But what about if someone has already pursued their masters here in India and then they want to pursue their PhD or post PhD research outside? So what kind of opportunities are there out there?
There are definitely opportunities available in every country. So if you go to the universities and your department, you would know the kind of research that is happening. So basically, PhD is like applying for a job. What are they asking for and do you have it in you? And you make a research proposal of what you've already done here in India. All universities expect a minimum of 120 hours of research work here in India if you have to apply for PhD. That means you should have done some research in India. And when I say research, there is a difference between what happens with Indian universities and what happens abroad. Here, what they mean by research is you actually publishing papers, publishing articles, doing research work which makes you stand out of what they have. Majority of universities end up picking their own students from their own universities of masters because they would have seen the students right in front of them in the labs, right? So the majority of professors take. So students who go for masters have very high chances of being picked up for PhD if they have it in them. Because one, they studied there, they did the research work there, the professors have seen them there, so it's easy for them to pick. Which is why going from India is really difficult because you have to go with that who never got picked up there, which means now they are looking for some scientists, some rocket scientists only. But having said that, we have had students from IITs and IISCs get through to that. Not a lot, but they do get. So for such students, they need to make a research proposal. It goes to the professor, they do various interviews, they go through all the qualifications and then they make an offer for PhD, then the student comes to us. So that process is exact ulta. So for all other students, whether it is UG students or masters, we make the application, we submit it and then they get the offer. In PhD and research, they speak to the department, they talk to the professors, they make the proposal. We can only guide them with samples once again, and then if they get a PhD, which like I said is very, very rare, they can come back to us. Once again, when you say PhD, the PhDs which are fully funded are the most difficult to get. If they are partially funded, the chances are high. If they are fully not funded, it's a paid PhD, then your chances of getting in is very high. So it all depends on the fees also.
So now to sum up our episode, what advice would you give for Indian students who want to go overseas and study? I mean, because you have personal experience, and why should you think they should consider KC Overseas?
Yeah, let me just sum up the whole thing. First of all, why study abroad? Because that international experience is something which cannot be explained. Having experienced it myself, it's like, there are certain feelings which you can only express and feel, but I can't explain it to another one as to what it is. The differences are huge, the way they work, the way they talk. That experience is something which, like I said, today also I'm using what I studied in Australia ages ago. So it's like a lifetime of experience. Apart from that, we've already spoken of return on investments and why you should be doing it, because technically you're not spending as much. You're spending initially, you're showing it, but later you're going to take it back from the same country. So it's like them funding you to go there, work there, gain experience, study their stuff and then come back. So why not? Because staying in India is always an option. You can always come back to India at any time, but going abroad is something, it's a precious thing that you can do. KC is a 25 years old company. We, the Bangalore branch, have completed 10 years recently. So we have all the expertise to kind of guide the students. Especially the Bangalore team, me and Rajesh both have lived abroad, stayed there, studied there, come back. So we also have a lot of experience to share with. So it's all very good. Most myths of students is, one, my percentage is very low and I may not get into a foreign country, or we don't have the funding. Both are myths. We have students of bus drivers, kids, going abroad to study. We have sent students, my own mates sister's daughter, we sent her abroad to study. So funding is something we can always talk about. There are various things that can be done. Secondly, percentage. There are students with 65 backlogs whom we have sent abroad, and they are now the vice president of an insurance company in US. I don't want to take the name of the student, but I can always vouch for such students. So the ones who have really done bad in India are the ones who click the most abroad, because they are the ones who probably are not good with memorizing or doing well in their academics, and they're very good practically. And that's what those countries need, right? So we've seen huge success stories. Students who purchase BMWs and Benzes within, let's say, 2 years, 3 years of them going there. I wouldn't say the first year, but all depends, right? And I would say it's all dependent on the initiative the student takes. Something isn't working if they're not getting jobs from online portals. We've seen students, 2,500 jobs they've applied, they've not been called, they're still doing the same thing. That doesn't work in foreign countries. You have to have initiatives. You should know something isn't working. What do I do? Do I network? Do I take special different things? Do I add certain voluntary work experience to my profile? Or do I get my resume changed? Is there something that I can do? These things the student should come up with. So we are there to guide you and tell you what can be done in foreign countries, and it works like magic, especially even getting a part-time job, because none of our students in India are used to part-time jobs, because we don't encourage students to do that while here. We tell them how is it that you get a part-time job, how do you get the full-time jobs, and so on. So this is basically majorly our services. Having said that, all industries have black marks. All industries have scams. We have seen YouTube videos and so many videos where students say, please don't go to consultancies, they'll eat your money, they'll guide you to the wrong destinations, they'll give you the wrong stuff. Yes, of course it's going to be there. I'm not saying each and every consultant is doing the right thing. Be aware of them. There are a lot of sub-agents who are using the main name, like for example, KC or others, and processing the application through them, but telling the student we are the consultant and stuff like that. It's okay to do that. It's not illegal as long as the student is aware. A lot of times they are not told who is processing the application, what is being done. The student is all over the place because this person is now in touch with some other person and the student doesn't know what's happening. That is something you have to be very wary about. Also, there are so many consultants who charge huge service fees right up front. If we have a contract with any university abroad, ethically we are not supposed to charge the student anything, because that's what our contract says. It's the university which pays us commission once the student goes to the university and completes the first semester. So these are certain things that you have to be very wary about, especially if they're charging you. European countries, majority of agents do charge money because they are not getting any commissions from universities. That still makes sense. But if you're charging money to send you to UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, you have to be very wary, because technically it's not allowed, it's unethical. So unless you're with that, I think, like I said, there's a lot of good things that come out of studying abroad, and we are there to help you reach the destination that you're looking for.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think a lot of students out there, they have better light of and knowledge of how overseas education works. And you've given a lot of insights about the program that can we choose, the destination, and how KC completely end-to-end service that KC provides. Thanks a lot for being on our episode now.
Pleasure, lovely talking to you, and I really hope there are certain people who get some advantage from this session.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.